Namaskar. The social media platform Facebook is in the middle of a political slugfest over alleged bias. The company has clarified that it prohibits hate speech, and the issue has snowballed from an article in the Wall Street Journal, which had quoted unnamed sources to allege that Facebook was being lenient on BJP supporters to protect its business interests in India. Well, the Facebook executive who is involved with this has filed a complaint, in fact, with the police, saying that she has been receiving online threats. All this is going to be in focus tonight, the political aspects of Facebook. And let's begin with the headlines. My name is Mark Lynn. India's battle against COVID-19 continues to gain strength. Recovery rate improves to above 72%. 57,584 people cured in the last 24 hours. The death rate falls to 1.92%. Over 3 crore tests done in total. More than 7,31,000 tests in the last 24 hours. Another gift to the people of the Northeast. Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari lays the foundation stone of 13 highway projects in Manipur, inaugurates road safety project, says connectivity in the area will increase, urges the Chief Minister to take steps to free the state from petrol and diesel dependence. The BJP hits out at the Congress leader Rahul Gandhi for allegations on PM CARES Fund. The BJP President JP Nadda says that the Gandhi family legacy is to transfer money of the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund to the family trust. Nadda says that Rahul Gandhi and his mother hurt the country's national interest by taking money from China. On the Facebook controversy, BJP tells the Congress that people caught red-handed while dealing with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook should not have the gall to question the BJP. Facebook clarifies that it prohibits content that promotes violence and it does not support any political party or ideology. Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar says that Project Dolphin will start in 15 days. Video conferences with state environment ministers. The Finance Commission increases the surcharge for forest protection from 7 to 10%. 80% of Campa Fund will be used for forest protection. India and Nepal review progress of development-related projects. Both sides agree to speed up implementation of various projects. Nepal expresses gratitude for India's support of medical equipment to meet the COVID-19 challenge. The flood situation is still grim in Bihar. Over 81 lakh population of 16 districts are in the grip of the floods. Several rivers, including the Ganga, are above the danger mark in many places. 788 villages in 15 districts in Uttar Pradesh are flood affected. A big announcement for tribals, a health portal for tribals. Their health interests in mind has been launched. Better services to be rendered for tribal areas. An e-newsletter too for tribals launched on the occasion. The legendary classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj dies at the age of 90 in New Jersey in the United States. President, Prime Minister, Defense Minister and other dignitaries pay rich tributes to the maestro. Our top story, the recovery rate from COVID-19 in the country is now at 72%. The case fatality rate has fallen to 1.92%. There were over 7.31 lakh tests conducted in the last 24 hours, and the key indicators reveal that efforts of testing, tracking and treating are paying good dividends. Here's our report.
The fight against COVID-19 continues in India. India registered the highest single-day recoveries with as many as 57,584 COVID-19 patients getting cured and discharged in the last 24 hours. This achievement has further spurred India's recovery rate to cross the 72% threshold. With 7,31,697 tests conducted in the last 24 hours, India is on its resolved drive to increase its testing capacity to 10 lakh tests daily. 941 deaths were reported in the period due to COVID-19. The case fatality rate has further slumped, touching 1.92%. Cumulative testing rose from 1.2 crores on 14th July 2020 to 3 crores on 16th August 2020. As a result of increased testing, the positivity rate has seen a rise from 7.5% to 8.81% in the same period. Total 3,41,400 tests have been conducted so far. India has followed a standard of care protocol for the differentiated categorization of COVID-19 patients, mild, moderate and severe. The effective clinical management strategies are yielding desired positive results. India's COVID-19 recoveries stand at 19,19,842. The actual caseload of the country stands at 6,76,900. It has greatly reduced and currently comprises only 25.57% of the total positive cases. Early identification of cases has helped to ensure timely and prompt isolation of the mild and moderate cases and hospitalization of the severe and critical cases, thereby leading to timely and effective management of cases. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Well, the Modi government has taken several steps to boost the development of the Northeast. Union Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari laid the foundation stone for 13 highway projects in Manipur through video conferencing. He also inaugurated a road safety project in the state. Over 3,000 crore rupees will be spent for the development of 316 kilometers of roads in the state.
Committed to the development of the Northeast, the Modi government has been stressing on boosting connectivity in the region. Monday saw Manipur's development being put at the forefront with a virtual foundation stone laying of 13 highway projects and a road safety project's inauguration by Union Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari. The 316 kilometers long highway projects will cost around 3,000 crore rupees. Speaking on the occasion, the minister said development of the Northeast Corridor is among Prime Minister Narendra Modi's top priorities. He said these projects will bring better connectivity, convenience and economic development to Manipur. He also said that the state will soon see more highway projects being taken up.
समय में हम लोग काफ़ी प्रमाण पर ऑनगोइंग प्रोजेक्ट्स जो है नए प्रोजेक्ट्स है उसको भी लेने वाले हैं। अभी जो प्रोजेक्ट शुरू है वो भी एक प्रकार से बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और वो प्रोजेक्ट की भी कीमत कम से कम 2250 करोड़ रुपए है और जो आज हमने उसका प्रोसेस में ऑलरेडी काम चल रहा है। जो विशेष रूप से मेरा विश्वास है कि मणिपुर को विकसित करने की दृष्टि से और भी प्रोजेक्ट करने की आवश्यकता है।
Gadkari gave a call for taking up large-scale organic farming in Manipur, which has the potential to transform the state. He also appealed to the state's chief minister to use green fuels like methanol to make the state petrol and diesel free.
मैं मुख्यमंत्री जी को आह्वान करूंगा कि ट्रांसपोर्ट मंत्री मैं हूं और इसीलिए सब प्रकार के स्टैंडर्ड्स हमने तय किए। बस पूरी मदद मैं आपको करूंगा। क्या आप मणिपुर से पेट्रोल डीजल को हटाकर पूरे मणिपुर को ग्रीन बना सकते हैं क्या? जैसे सिक्किम ने, जिसका उल्लेख बार बार प्रधानमंत्री करते हैं कि वहाँ ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग है, पेस्टिसाइड्स और केमिकल फर्टिलाइज़र का उपयोग नहीं होता, उसी प्रकार से मणिपुर में ऑर्गेनिक खेती हो और पूरी तरह डीजल और पेट्रोल का जो प्रदूषण होता है उससे मुक्ति मिले। ऐसी कोई नई योजना अगर आप तैयार करेंगे तो मणिपुर के निश्चित रूप से सस्टेनेबिलिटी, वहाँ की इकोलॉजी और एनवायरनमेंट में काफ़ी फर्क पड़ेगा।
Among these projects are 4-laning of 20-kilometer long Imphal-More section of NH39, NH102 at a cost of 762 crore rupees. Widening and 2-laning works of Chura-Chandpur to Tuavai section of NH102B costing a total of 1,389.58 crore rupees. widening and strengthening to two-laning of 18.29 km long Palel-Chandel section of NH 102C costing 107.72 crore rupees. Construction of Moreh bypass to two-lane for 2.52 km on NH 39 costing 68.14 crore rupees. Widening to two-lane of Yang Pokpi Finch corner section of 30.97 km of NH 202 costing 478 crore rupees. And restoration and rehabilitation of NH 102A for 151.5 km costing a total of 109.33 crore rupees. Along with these projects, several other works related to construction of junctions, foot overbridges, footpaths, road signs, markings and much more were also initiated. The virtual event was chaired by Manipur's Chief Minister N. Biren Singh. Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways V.K. Singh, Donor Minister Jitendra Singh and several state cabinet ministers and senior officials were also part of the event. With Nando Singh in Imphal, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Well, the BJP President JP Nadda has lashed out at the Congress leader Rahul Gandhi for allegedly spreading misinformation regarding the PM CARES Fund. JP Nadda took to Twitter to criticize Rahul Gandhi after he shared an article questioning the transparency of the PM CARES Fund. Nadda accused Rahul Gandhi of sharing the article without understanding what it actually reads. Nadda wrote, and I quote, "The entire nation has full faith on the Prime Minister and his initiatives. This faith was yet again visible with the massive support for the PM CARES Fund. Being the loser you are, you can only crib and spread fake news while the entire nation has joined hands in the fight against COVID-19. This happens when the Prince of Incompetence shares articles without even reading them. The RTI was filed to know details of other RTIs, and this is maliciously spun by you as an attack on transparency. Well, it's natural given how your career is only based on spreading fake news." The ruling BJP and opposition Congress have traded barbs over Facebook's alleged bias. Now, the BJP has reminded the Congress of its links with Cambridge Analytica that has a track record of manipulating elections. The BJP has also accused Facebook of censoring nationalist voices. The opposition Congress referred to a Wall Street Journal report that alleged that Facebook's content policies seem to favor the ruling party. With reference to an article in the Wall Street Journal a few days ago, the Congress party has accused the BJP of misusing social media platform Facebook, saying that Facebook has adopted a soft attitude towards BJP leaders compared to leaders of other political outfits. Taking strong exception to these allegations, Communications and IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad called the Congress party losers and reminded the opposition party of its proven track record of data misuse and being caught red-handed. Losers who cannot influence people, even in their own party, keep cribbing that the entire world is controlled by BJP and RSS. You were caught red-handed in alliance with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook to weaponize data before the elections, and now have the gall to question us. The fact is that today, access to information and freedom of expression has been democratized. It is no longer controlled by retainers of your family, and that is why it hurts. By the way, haven't yet heard your condemnation of the Bangalore riots. Where did your courage disappear? The BJP has hit out at Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party, calling the allegations unfounded.
जहां तक राहुल गांधी जी का जो आरोप है, वो तो रोज नित नए आरोप लगाते रहते हैं। वो एक असफल नेता है और स्वाभाविक रूप से कहीं न कहीं उनकी खींच और उनकी बौखलाहट सामने दिख रही है। जहां तक सांठगांठ का सवाल है और कंट्रोल का सवाल है, मुझे लगता है कि राहुल गांधी कांग्रेस के ऊपर ही कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। कंट्रोल से बाहर कांग्रेस जा रही है और उसका प्रलाप राहुल गांधी कर रहे हैं।
जहां तक कांग्रेस का सवाल है, अगर कांग्रेस को लगता है कि इस प्रकार की आधी अधूरी कहानी गढ़कर वो अपनी राजनीति कर सकते हैं, तो ऐसा संभव नहीं है। राहुल गांधी की आज कोई विश्वसनीयता नहीं है, उनकी बात को कोई सीरियसली नहीं लेता है।
Facebook too has clarified its position and said, "We prohibit hate speech and content that incites violence, and we enforce these policies globally without regard to anyone's political position or party affiliation. While we know there is more to do, we're making progress on enforcement and conduct regular audits of our process to ensure fairness and accuracy." Allegations of political misuse of social media platforms are not new, and one can recall that the Congress party was found collaborating with Cambridge Analytica a company that allegedly stole data from Facebook users and utilized it to manipulate opinions before elections in several countries, including the US. The Congress Party symbol was found prominently displayed in Cambridge Analytica's office. BJP MP and former Union Minister Rajyavardhan Rathore termed the allegations by the Congress Party as an attempt by a left Congress cabal to control an already Congress and left-leaning platform Facebook and punish them for allowing alternative viewpoints. Newsnight Desk, DD India. So that brings us to In Focus tonight, and this is it. We ask the question, why politics over Facebook? And to discuss this, we have Subimal Bhattacharjee, social media expert, and Praful Ketkar is editor of Organizer, joining us via satellite link. Thanks very much, both of you, for joining us. Now, we'd start with you, Praful Ketkar. You know, when we look at Facebook or any other social media for that matter, we see that most people generally use this to catch up with friends and well-wishers. Users, you know, may have political opinions, that's true, but it's not all the time. I mean, how effective is it, you know, even for political parties to try and politicize it? At the end of the day, Facebook is a social media platform where people are chatting to one another as if, you know, they are just friends.
See, Mark, since 2013-14, we have seen that the way social media platforms are being used effectively to communicate with the people by Prime Minister Modi and many other political parties followed the same path. But what happened, if you see, you know, the debate that is happening globally, especially post 2016-17, the way algorithms and the content that is being censored, managed on social media platforms, it has opened the new debate about freedom of expression, because
yes,
originally these platforms were meant only to communicate with your friends, establish new connections or revive old connections. So it was just to share free ideas, maybe something, you know, creative thing that you do on your own. But
yes,
eventually the way that is happening in all other spheres of life, social media platforms are also getting politicized or effectively used for political purpose. I don't see anything wrong fundamentally in that.
okay,
It becomes problematic when certain media platforms use either artificial intelligence or algorithms to create a certain narrative. And what Colonel Rathore has written today is
yes,
absolutely that, you know, earlier the so-called mainstream or the print medium was dominated by certain viewpoints. Social media platforms came as a reaction to it, and
okay,
then suddenly the controlling part started. What
absolutely,
we are seeing from Congress, or especially if you see in the global debate, whether in Singapore, what happened in the parliament there, or in US Senate, where the questions were raised about blocking the conservative opinions, it clearly shows that there is a tussle to retain the control over opinion making.
okay,
And that is a real battle that is taking place, which is very unfortunate. Ultimate victim is free speech.
Indeed. Mr. Bhattacharjee, let's understand, you know, how a social media platform can actually regulate. They use obviously keywords, algorithms, but you know, those algorithms are not foolproof. They can't actually find everything, can they? Because as you know, Praful Ketkar was talking about Colonel Rajyavardhan Rathore's article, and he in fact is quoted saying that, you know, millions of posts mocking Hindu gods, abusing right-wing right-of-center leaders, advanced algorithms of Facebook and community standards fails to catch them. So, I mean, this is important to understand. I mean, what is how effective are these algorithms at the end of the day?
See, as far as the social media platforms are concerned, Basically, they are a medium for free expression, as Prafulji rightly pointed out. As more and more, individuals have become digitally inclined, more, you can say, digitally empowered. Much of their expression are primarily coming to the social media, and this aspect today is being politicized. It's going in directions that possibly nobody thought maybe even 15 years back. We just celebrated 25 years of internet in India.
Yes.
I've been a witness to that whole 25 years. Now, if I may say that in the last 10 years, we are seeing this space coming far much more active and often in conflict. Now, having said so, if you look at this particular battle, the phenomenon, of social media, you can say the big tech, if I may use the word. If you take a term which we commonly use called GAFAM, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. Now, these are the companies today. They are being feared, even in their country of origin, US, where where free speech is fundamentally, one of the biggest factors of the democracy. So, even if you pick up now Facebook, which is in this current scenario, and if you see Mark Zuckerberg's deposition to the House Judiciary Committee on the 29th of July last month, where this similar issue was picked up on, he made very clear that their platforms are meant to be neutral and allow everyone to communicate. Now, it depends upon what is that level of appreciation by a society and where it crosses the thin line. That thin line, in most of the cases of the social media, is generally the terms of services that they define very clearly. So, by and large, even today, you will see that Facebook and Twitter or even others are applying different levels of standards. Now, coming to your point about algorithms and what is happening. Yes, artificial intelligence has come and or is playing a very major factor in terms of I won't say defining your presence in the social medium, but in kind of aiding you or optimizing your presence in the media. But look at the social media. He doesn't gain if his credibility comes under question. So beyond a certain point, he wouldn't try to doctor with anything that would be detrimental to his rise. After all, this is a revenue-based and ad-based revenue platform, and that is very much public conscious activity.
Absolutely, it should affect their business interests. We bring in Praful Ketkar back into the discussion now. Praful Ketkar, where you did talk about politics. Obviously, it because of millions of users, massive amount of data. Political parties would like to have their say across these millions of users, but what's happening is that we have facts and we have fact checkers and we have fake news, and this has become a whole industry now. And obviously this is pretty political because the fact checkers will be political agents, the fake news could be political. I mean, so at the end of the day, this is much of social media is trying to find out what is fake and what is not fake.
See, Mark, we have seen, last election when this entire Cambridge Analytica controversy came up, the way agencies are hired to, and we have, we have seen the controversies around the bot accounts also, how they work, and fake accounts are created. For me, this, this entire narrative of fake news itself is a fake narrative, because news cannot be fake. If it is news, it can't be fake. If it is fake, it can't be news. What is fake narrative. Now, I'll just give you an example. If you search anywhere, whether Google or any other social media platform, and you talk about, say, data-based analysis of, say, rapes all over the world, and you will immediately find something related to India and calling India as rape capital, and because this narrative is built. There is no data to substantiate that. I'm not saying that there are no crimes against women, but if you see that, the numerical comparison per million, it is much less compared to many European countries or cities like New York, in the US, in India. But still, data is manipulated in such a way that narrative is built. And that narrative building is effectively done through social media. And now, because data is a new currency, and Bimalji is expert in that, he can bring the real issue, I believe, instead of political parties talking about who is controlling the narrative, they should leave it to, and they should allow even companies to have all kinds of people working there. They should allow different voices and different opinions, different ideas to flourish.
Yes.
The real debate should be about data sovereignty and data security.
Okay.
Monopolization of data is going to monopolize the narrative. That is the critical issue that we need to address.
Indeed, Mr. Bhattacharjee, let's try and understand, about how the regulator or the company can basically say the platform can crack down on its misuse, because it would want to do that to some extent for its own credibility. And we see now they have a stated position that inciting hate and violence and all these things are offensive posts are against their policy. But we know that fake news can be debated. That's, both sides can air their opinion. But when it becomes violent, it has to be removed, and that's their policy. But is there a better system? People report. For instance, if you find something offensive, you report it to Facebook, and they are supposed to remove it if they do a proper investigation. But is there a better system than this particular system?
I think self-regulation as far as the tech industry is concerned, or maybe I can say the social media is concerned, possibly would have been a very optimal way. But if you see, very many times even in this country, the law enforcement agencies find real difficulty in getting a lot of information from these social media platforms, even when they are investigating things. I am aware of specific cases where even today, after all the assurances, doesn't come. And that's where, when we are looking at the new data protection bill, which is currently under an expert committee, now in that a lot of provisions are coming where somewhere we have I don't say any kind of control, but we have a regulatory watch on the data that is generated in the country, and which is impacting the country, whether at a society level or business level or overall the nation's security is concerned. So I think what's very important is to see that beyond the IT Act, where today, which is the base for this platform. These platforms are basically intermediaries.
Yeah, but 66A has been struck down by the Supreme Court. So
Section 79 of the Act, which defines intermediaries, is the guiding principle for all these social media platforms. But the way things are going on and the promises that they also make in terms of using fact checkers and others to be able to bring a certain level of confidence of the society, I think that has not been up to the mark. Hence, we would all look to the data protection bill to look at many of the aspects. As Prafulji rightly mentioned, data is the new currency, data is the new oil, data is the new water, everything. So a certain kind of a data sovereignty, a certain sense of data localization, where we are also vocal about. I think these are the things that will be very important, as the next few steps, to be able to have a certain parity, so that we are constantly not in this acquisition mode or using this medium to launch far much bigger and offensive activities that has national security implications.
Indeed. Now, there was also, Praful Ketkar, the talk about weaponizing the social media at a time of elections, and that's generally what actually a lot of the posts are, because they are a form of trying to influence votes. But, we know that if we do go back to the article of Rajapathan Rathore, he was saying very clearly that, there is a left Congress cabal which now who are acting as gatekeepers in a sense of the social media, and they are saying such and such post is offensive and such post should not be allowed, but who gives them the right to do this and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, we tend to focus basically based on what the opinions of certain people who bring out certain issues, rather than allow Facebook to find things on their own.
See, Mark, there was an ecosystem which had a monopoly over narratives in India, and nobody dared to question them because, they were a sort of, carrying that kind of sanctity and authority over opinion making. And still they occupy a lot of space in media. But what happened? Social media suddenly democratized this process,
yes.
and even a common man could expose or question this monopolization process. This rattled, many in the ecosystem. And that generally happens when somebody is monopolizing and having a complete control over the system. Whenever somebody questions it, so in that sense, social media was a very revolutionary thing.
Yes.
But eventually what happens, because this monopolizing tendency was always there with this ecosystem, so they came up with a new mechanism in the name of fact-checking, in the name of labeling something as fake news, in the name of, even using certain employees or certain techniques to shadow ban certain news agencies, certain platforms, certain individuals.
Okay.
So we are seeing debate related to Twitter in many of the parliaments all over the world. We are seeing debates related to Facebook, WhatsApp related issues that we have seen even in India.
Okay.
So all these things actually brought us to the larger question. One is the question that you asked to Subimal ji, about the security aspect. The basic problem about the cyberspace is the conventional logic of law is not applicable to cyberspace.
Yes.
Conventional logic of law was always related to land. Now the question is, if somebody is routing some offense through a server, how are you going to deal with it? If somebody is going to use data to create misinformation, unrest or conflicts in your society from some other land, how are you going to deal with it? These are the real questions that we need to ask, and ask these companies to be responsible about this rather than getting into just mere political accusations.
Fine. And a final question from to you, Subimal Bhattacharjee. This is a time when people are using social media a lot because this is the only way you can communicate with your friends. You're not meeting them because of social distancing. There's a lockdown. There's a concern about COVID. There are so many other issues. So perhaps, those interests which want to use social media or politicize it will think that this is a chance, where you can actually get more eyeballs in a sense. So how would you look at, the timing of these kind of allegations and whatever's happening on this controversy?
I think, you see, today 50% of the population of this country are on the internet. More and more people are coming. Digital India is facilitating the entry of a lot of people. So each of these people, who are wanting to take advantage of these, platforms and create a controversy, thinks that, if there is a way to defame or, pull the government into such kind of maneuvers, then, they have better ways to gather eyeballs. However, look at the, the larger prospects. When all these large tech companies are investing in the country, and in these times of COVID, where everywhere, people are withholding.
Yes.
So this is a great opportunity for the country to move forward and show much degrees of maturity. Everyone, the naysayers also benefit when the country becomes more digitally empowered, more citizens come in. We have had tremendous number of applications that has now motivated a lot of the people to get into the bandwagon. Data prices are one of the cheapest in the country. Mobile phones prices are at rock bottom anywhere in the world. So with all of that, when we welcome the next 50%, say in a matter of the next 5 to 10 years, we'll almost move to 75%.
Okay.
These are the times where there will be far much more activity. So I think this kind of controversial and politicizing stories have to stop.
Okay.
And let's look how we contribute positively.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Subimal Bhattacharjee, social media expert, and Praful Ketkar, editor of The Organizer, for being with us on Newsnight. We're going to take a short commercial break now. Stay with us.
एक भरोसे का हुनर, उंगलियां बुनियादें तो हंसे हिंदुस्तान होगा। पहले करो शुरुआत करो, करो तो पक्की बात करो, पहले करो शुरुआत करो, करो तो पक्की।
वंडर सीमेंट, एक परफेक्ट शुरुआत।
Welcome back. Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar today interacted with state environment ministers via a video conference. The MOS Babul Supriyo also attended this meeting at the Paryavaran Bhavan in the national capital. Prakash Javadekar called upon the states to work closely with one another and also to give commensurate importance to the national forest policy, the nationally determined commitments and the restoration of degraded forest land. Here's more.
Union Environment and Forest Minister Prakash Javadekar, along with Minister of State Babul Supriyo on Monday, attended a meeting of all state forest ministers through video conferencing at Paryavaran Bhavan in the national capital. The meeting focused on enhancing forest quality and increasing the tree cover for maximizing carbon stock. The ministry has taken several initiatives which include massive tree plantation, promoting urban forestry through Nagar One scheme, landscape-based catchments, treatment of 13 major rivers, LIDAR-based survey of degraded forest areas for soil moisture conservation projects and launch of National Transit Portal.
इसमें हमने मूलतः 4 बिंदुओं पर चर्चा की थी। एक नगर वन योजना है, अर्बन फॉरेस्ट, हर शहर में एक अच्छा जंगल बने। इस साल 1000 स्कूलों में छात्र पौधे लगाएंगे और ग्रो करके अपने घर में लेकर जाके या बाहर नज़दीक वहाँ पेड़ लगाएंगे जहाँ जगह है। हम जंगलों में पानी और फॉडर का ऑगमेंटेशन करना चाहते हैं और इसलिए एक एक क्षेत्र एक एक राज्य में तय हुआ है जहाँ लाइडर सर्वे किया जाएगा, तो उसके आधार पर ही वेरी साइंटिफिक प्लानिंग करके इस बार काम होगा, अगले साल उसका उपयोग होगा। ऑल इंडिया में घूमने के लिए एक ट्रांजिट पोर्टल हमने तैयार किया है, उसका भी सभी राज्यों का सहभाग चाहिए और बाकी भी हमारे स्कीमों का रिव्यू हुआ।
Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar said Finance Commission has increased the forest weightage to 10% from the earlier 7% and added 80% of the Kampa funds should be used by states for forest preservation.
फाइनेंस कमीशन ने इस बार फॉरेस्ट का वेटेज बढ़ाकर डिवोल्यूशन में राज्यों को जो पैसा मिलेगा उसमें अपना वेटेज फॉरेस्ट का बढ़ा है और फॉरेस्ट का वेटेज अब 10% हो गया है। सो 10%, अर्लियर इट वाज 7%, 3% से वो बढ़ा है। इसका मतलब फॉरेस्ट को अब ज़्यादा पैसे मिलने चाहिए, मिलेंगे अगर राज्य सरकार खुद के पैसे लगाएगा तो।
Union Minister also asked all states to come up with an outline for Project Dolphin within a fortnight. The project will involve long-term conservation of Gangetic dolphins and dolphins along the coasts.
प्रधानमंत्री जी का आदेश है, हम आने वाले 15 दिन में उसकी पूरी रूपरेखा तैयार करेंगे, टाइमलाइन तैयार करेंगे। तो डॉल्फिन को संरक्षण और संवर्धन करने का कार्यक्रम हम 15 दिन में सुनिश्चित करके सबके सामने रखेंगे।
The meeting was conducted to ensure participation and coordination of all the states in taking forward various initiatives of the central government and meet national and international goals. States have shown enthusiasm and expressed cooperation in this endeavor. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
India and Nepal have held the 8th meeting of the oversight mechanism through digital video conferencing on Monday. The meeting was co-chaired by the Indian ambassador in Nepal, Vinay Mohan Quatra, and the Nepali Foreign Secretary Nepal Shankar Das Bairagi. The meeting carried out a comprehensive review of bilateral economic and development cooperation projects since its 7th meeting, which was held on the 8th of July 2019, and both sides deliberated on the issues and also agreed to expedite their implementation. Both the sides noted the progress made in the development projects in the last 1 year, including reconstruction of 46,301 earthquake-affected houses in Gorkha and Nuwakot districts, the operationalization of Motihari Amlekganj cross-border petroleum products pipeline, the integrated checkpost in Biratnagar, and the high-impact community development projects. Nepal has also appreciated Indian assistance in the fight against COVID-19 and the supply of medicines and medical equipment to Nepal by India. Both sides have agreed to hold the next meeting of the oversight mechanism on a mutually convenient date. The 13th session of the India-UAE Joint Commission meeting on trade, economic and technical cooperation was held virtually. And this meeting was co-chaired by Dr. S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, and Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates. Wide-ranging discussions were held in a friendly, frank and constructive atmosphere, reflecting the strong bilateral ties between the two strategic partners. Both sides welcomed close cooperation in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic and discussed joint strategy to offset economic and social impact of the pandemic. Both sides also agreed to hold the next session of the India-UAE Joint Commission meeting in Abu Dhabi in 2021. The specific dates of the meeting will be finalized by both sides through diplomatic channels. Delivering the keynote address at the curtain raiser of the World Solar Technology Summit, the Union Power, New and Renewable Energy Minister and also the President of the International Solar Alliance Assembly, R.K. Singh, congratulated the ISA for conceptualizing the first ever World Solar Technology Summit. He said that the event will drive the necessary growth of solar energy around the world through innovations. He pointed out that when the world is striving to fight the corona pandemic, collective efforts will help realize the objective of universal electricity access to all. R.K. Singh invited all stakeholders to participate in the conference.
The technology challenges which face us, we need to apply our minds to. And this World Solar Technology Summit is an attempt in that direction. It's an attempt to bring together the scientists, the engineers, the companies involved in commercial production of the technologies which are developed, and the member states, the nations, to sit down together and think about what the challenges are in realizing this dream which we have of making energy eminently affordable and abundant so that people can live better lives. The World Solar Technology Summit is envisaged.
The Tribal Affairs Minister Arjun Munda on Monday launched a first-of-its-kind online platform containing comprehensive health and nutritional related information about the country's tribal population. The objective is to provide a platform to all health and nutrition data specific to the tribal communities to improve the overall tribal health scenario in the country.
India is known for its diversity. A varied number of communities, classes, languages, dresses and lifestyle has been the identity of India. Many states also have tribal population, but lack of data specific to the health and nutrition of this population was a big hurdle before the government in improving the tribal health scenario of the country. Taking this into account, Tribal Affairs Minister Arjun Munda on Monday inaugurated the e-portal on tribal health and nutrition named Swasthya. The portal provides all health and nutrition related information of the tribal population of India on a single platform.
डिजिटल हेल्थ हिंदुस्तान के समस्त लोगों को प्रोवाइड कराएगा और यह सुनिश्चित करने का कार्य हम प्रारंभ कर रहे हैं और मैं समझता हूं कि उस दिशा में बढ़ाने वाला पहला कदम यह ट्राइबल अफेयर्स मिनिस्ट्री का है कि जब हम इस पोर्टल के माध्यम से वैसे क्षेत्र में रहने वाले समस्त नागरिकों को जो वंचित हैं, जो पिछड़े हैं, जो सुदूरवर्ती क्षेत्र में रहते हैं, जिन्हें हम जनजातीय समाज के रूप में देखते हैं, आदिवासी के रूप में देखते हैं, अनुसूचित जनजाति के रूप में देखते हैं.
Tribal Affairs Ministry also released a quarterly e-newsletter, Alekh, to showcase the work of all the stakeholders and encourage them to learn from each other's successes and failures. Arjun Munda said, the launch of the portal is a first step towards the much bigger goal of serving the tribal population of the nation. He informed about the initiatives of the ministry in partnership with Facebook through the Going Online as Leaders Goal program. Munda said, through the Goal program, the ministry aims to mentor 5,000 tribal youth across India and enable them to become village-level digital young leaders for their communities. The ministry has also opened National Tribal Fellowship Portal for the students of this community. Abhishek Singh's report, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Monday virtually inaugurated the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of IIT Delhi. He urged all IITs and higher education institutions to focus on research work that can help solve societal problems. The Union Education Minister Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank attended the event.
Inaugurating the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of IIT Delhi through video conferencing, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu said, Indian institutions will be counted among the world's best only when they start impacting societies around them by developing optimal and sustainable solutions to problems faced by the nation. Calling for greater investment in research and development projects which focus on finding solutions to societal problems, the Vice President urged the private sector to collaborate with the academia in identifying such projects and to fund them liberally. The Vice President praised the new national education policy for seeking to promote India as a global study destination, which would pave the way for making India Vishwaguru of the world order.
The new education policy seeks to promote India as a global study destination, providing premium education at affordable cost. Premium education at affordable cost, thereby helping to restore its role as Vishwaguru. The move to facilitate selected universities from among the top 100 universities in the world to operate in India will also help in promoting excellence in education.
The Vice President expressed concern on the standard of higher education in India. He said that situation has to change and there has to be a concerted and collective action from all stakeholders to bring about a radical improvement in the standards and quality of education for our institutions of higher learning. He expressed happiness on the initiatives taken by IITs in the country in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic.
Every industry must promote some research and they should feel proud that they have supported so-and-so research and this is the result of the same. I'm told that IIT Delhi is laying great emphasis on internationalization, interdisciplinary research and industry connect.
Union Education Minister Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank said that research and innovation are the focus of new national education policy. He praised the institute for its efforts regarding the fight against COVID-19.
कोविड के दौरान जिस तरीके से लीडरशिप अपने हाथ में लेकर के IIT दिल्ली ने काम किया है और अभी बताया कि कोविड के ही दौरान इस राष्ट्रीय चुनौती का मुकाबला करते हुए भारत और दुनिया को 40 लाख से भी अधिक PPE की आपूर्ति की और इससे भी ज्यादा बड़ी बात महामहिम ये थी कि दुनिया में सबसे सस्ती RT-PCR किट प्रदान की जो कम समय में सस्ते में और बहुत गुणवत्तापूर्ण जो है जांचों को करने में सफल रही है.
One of the top engineering institutions of India, IIT Delhi was founded in 1961. It was granted the status of Institute of Eminence in 2018. The Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the institute will continue till the 15th of August 2021. With inputs from Nishant Saurabh, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Secretary Amit Khare awarded the 2020 Swachhta Pakhwada Awards to various departments of the INB Ministry for their outstanding contributions. Swachhta Pakhwada was held between the 16th and 31st of January this year in the INB Ministry. The Indian Institute of Mass Communication stood first. The DD News stood second as well, and also the Press Information Bureau was ranked third in this list. Now, on the occasion, the MIB Secretary, Amit Khare, congratulated the departments and said that the INB Ministry has played an important role in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan.
सबसे पहले मैं तीनों पुरस्कार विजेताओं भारतीय जनसंचार संस्थान, दूरदर्शन और प्रेस सूचना ब्यूरो को बधाई देता हूं। सूचना एवं प्रसारण मंत्रालय की इस स्वच्छता अभियान में महती भूमिका रही है और जैसा माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी कहा करते हैं, स्वच्छता कोई एक सप्ताह या पखवाड़ा नहीं है। स्वच्छता एक जीवन शैली का अंग है। वर्षों वर्षों तक हमें अपनी जीवन शैली का अंग बना के इसे रखना है।
In Bihar, the flood situation has remained grim for some time. According to the Disaster Management Department, the population of 81,56,000 residing in 1,311 panchayats and 130 blocks of 16 districts of Bihar are in the grip of floods. 10 relief camps are being operated in the flood-affected areas, of which 9 are in Samastipur and 1 in Khagharia. Now, apart from this, over 530,000 persons are being served cooked meals through 635 community kitchens. In Patna, the Ganga River is flowing above the danger mark. Bagmati, Buri Gandak are also flowing above the danger mark at several places. The Mahananda and its tributaries and other rivers are also flowing below the danger mark, and the water level in most of them is receding. So, the Met Office has forecast light to medium rain in Bihar within the next 2 to 3 days. Now, let's take a look at what else is making news across the country.
In Bihar, former JDU leader Shyam Rajak returned to his old party Rashtriya Janata Dal after 11 years. Rajak joined RJD in the presence of top party leaders including Tejashwi Prasad Yadav. Rajak was removed from the cabinet and was also expelled from the JDU on Sunday for 6 years for anti-party activities. Supreme Court rejected the plea seeking postponement of NEET and JEE exams 2020. Dismissing the petitions, the Apex Court bench headed by Justice Arun Mishra said that the career of students cannot be put in peril. We find no merit in the petition. On the assurance given by NTA, the court observed that the exams must go on with all protections in place. NEET 2020 is scheduled for 13 September, while the JEE main is to be held between September 1st to September 6th. 4G mobile internet services were restored as a trial in 2 districts of Jammu and Kashmir more than a year after it was suspended. An order issued by the Jammu and Kashmir Home Department read that the high-speed mobile data services in the districts of Gandarbal, Kashmir and Udhampur, Jammu division shall be restored forthwith on trial basis, while in rest of the districts the internet speed shall continue to be restricted in 2G only. In Jammu and Kashmir, at least 2 terrorists were gunned down by security forces in a gun battle on Monday in the Union Territory's Baramulla district. The encounter started after security forces chased the terrorists following their attack on a joint patrol party of CRPF and the police at Creedy area of Baramulla district earlier in the day. 2 troopers of CRPF and a SPO of Jammu and Kashmir police were martyred in that attack earlier in the day. Ladakh Lieutenant Governor R.K. Mathur inaugurated the first double-lane motorable bridge constructed over the Indus River at Choklam Sar at a cost of over 8.21 crore rupees under the Central Road Fund. Lieutenant Governor said that infrastructure like roads and bridges is of paramount importance in the development of a region. Union Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister Dharmendra Pradhan in a series of tweets said that Modi government's ambitious 451-kilometer long Digha-Gopalpur coastal highway will be a game-changer in transforming the fortunes of coastal Odisha. He added that the Digha-Gopalpur coastal highway will also act as an economic corridor for the transport of agricultural and pisciculture produce to Paradeep and Dhamra port, and also play an important role in movement of supplies during natural disasters such as cyclones and floods. BJP candidate for the by-election to the Rajya Sabha seat, Jai Prakash Nishad, was elected unopposed from Uttar Pradesh on Monday. The by-election in Uttar Pradesh was necessitated following the demise of Samajwadi Party MP Beni Prasad Verma in March. BJP leader Jyotiraditya Scindia visited Malwa in Madhya Pradesh. Addressing a program, he slammed the previous Congress government led by Kamal Nath for 15 months and said that during that period, corruption was at its peak. He said that the Congress government failed to fulfill its promises.
Legendary classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj passed away at the age of 90 in New Jersey in the United States. President Ramnath Kovind, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister and other dignitaries recalled his monumental contributions to Indian classical music. One of India's greatest music legends, classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj, died on Monday following a cardiac arrest at his home in New Jersey, USA. He was 90. He leaves behind a storied legacy spanning almost 8 decades. Jasraj, who belonged to the Mewathi Gharana, was in the United States when the coronavirus-led lockdown happened and he decided to stay back in that country. Pandit Jasraj was introduced to music by his father and later received training from his elder brother. His career spanned over 80 years and he was honored with the Padma Bhushan in 1990 and the Padma Vibhushan in 2000. President Ramnath Kovind mourned the death of the legendary classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj, saying that he had enthralled people with his soulful renditions. Expressing sorrow over the death, he offered condolence to the bereaved family. The president tweeted, "Music legend and unparalleled classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj's passing makes me sad. Spanning a distinguished career of over 8 decades, Pandit Jasraj, a Padma Vibhushan recipient, enthralled people with soulful renditions. Condolence to his family, friends and music connoisseurs." Condoling the death of the Indian classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that his demise has left a deep void in the Indian cultural sphere. He tweeted, "The unfortunate demise of Pandit Jasraj ji leaves a deep void in the Indian cultural sphere. Not only were his renditions outstanding, he also made a mark as an exceptional mentor to several other vocalists. Condolences to his family and admirers worldwide. Om Shanti." Along with the tweet, the Prime Minister also posted old pictures of his felicitating the maestro. Pandit Jasraj leaves behind a rich legacy and his contribution to the rich heritage of Indian classical music will always be remembered. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, there is a claim being floated in social media that tractors are being made available at half the price under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Tractor Yojana. Now, the above claim is fake and baseless. According to the PIB fact check, the centre is not running any such scheme. Jammu and Kashmir is on the path of development. The residents in the region are benefiting from government schemes. Also, the economic conditions are improving significantly. Here's a report about a village in Kupwara district.
These farmers are busy in organic farming in Hatmola village in Kupwara district. What is unique is that they themselves prepare vermicompost used in agriculture. Farmers themselves prepare all other items including compost in this part of organic village.
सबसे पहले ये एक बात है कि ये जो ऑर्गेनिक चीज़ जो है ना, जो हम भी खाते हैं और खिलाते हैं, सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि बीमारियों से हम दूर रहते हैं। तो अल्लाह ताला ने हमें नजात दिया उन बीमारियों जो केमिकल हम आज तक इस्तेमाल करते आ रहे हैं। तो ये सबसे बड़ी अचीवमेंट है इस चीज़ की। तो दूसरी बात यह है कि इससे बेरोजगारी भी बहुत हद तक यहाँ खत्म हुई है।
The village got the status of an organic village due to the efforts by the government. These farmers say that their economic conditions have improved significantly due to the development of organic village here. Besides getting better prices, the quality of fruits and vegetables too has improved.
इंशाल्लाह माशाल्लाह मुझे बहुत फायदा आया, मुझे दोगुना से अलावा हो गया, दोगुना से अलावा हो गया। हाँ, मैं इसमें करता नहीं है, केमिकल खाद नहीं लगाता इसमें, मैं ऑर्गेनिक लगाता है।
तो ये हेल्थ के लिए भी अच्छा है?
ये हेल्थ की भी अच्छा है और हमको ये भी पता चला डिपार्टमेंट की वजह से सब्जी कैसे कौन सी कसम क्या करना है, किस वक्त वो कौन सी सब्जी उगाना है, वो उसी तरह हम उगाते हैं। ये हमारे पास सारी सब्जी है,
क्वालिटी भी अच्छी है।
हाँ, क्वालिटी भी अच्छी है।
The administration plans to connect these farmers' produce with e-mandis. Moreover, there are also plans to develop 7 more villages as organic villages in the next phase. All these initiatives are being taken with an aim to develop the capacity of the land and to increase the income of the farmers.
There will be some introduction of new things. जैसे cauliflower उगता ही है, cabbage उगता ही है, चलो traditional नहीं उगता है तो हाइब्रिड सीड दे देंगे। तो तो इस साल हमने यहाँ इंट्रोडक्शन फर्स्ट टाइम की एक्जॉटिक वेजिटेबल्स। मैं आपको फार्म पर उसका डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन दे दूँ। उसमें लेट्यूस हमने किया, इसमें हमने ब्रोकली की, उसमें पार्सली के, ब्रसेल्स स्प्राउट के, यहाँ से ऊपर वाला थोड़ा सा बेल्ट है देखते तो वहाँ एक्सटेंसिवली ग्रो, रिजल्ट्स अच्छे रहे।
Given the importance of horticulture in improvement of economic condition in the district, the administration is taking several steps for its development. About 76,000 farmers linked with 30,000 horticulture land have been registered under PM Kisan Yojana. Apart from this, 28,000 farmers have received various other benefits under Kisan Credit Card Scheme. With Bureau Inputs, Ramatyagi's report for DD India.
You can see these are the organic produce in my hands, this apple and these cucumbers, and you can see the quality, you can see the variety here, and the farmers basically, they are very happy because they are saying that not only they are producing good quality, but they are getting good money also. With camera person Saurabh, Ramatyagi, DD News, Kupwara.
And with that, we conclude News Night for tonight. Thank you very much for being with us. Namaskar.